So, hi everyone. Welcome to another episode of Unpacking Possibility. I'm your host, Tracy Stein. As always, I am so happy to be here with you. Today, I'm going to speak a little bit more about a topic that I have covered previously, of course, and that's about manifesting what you want, mastering the art of manifesting. And in this episode, I would like to share an interview that I did with actor Lana Young, because her story is just truly inspiring, and I consider her one of the masters of manifesting. And in the interview, she'll tell you more why, but I want to give you a little bit of background on Lana. I want to talk a little bit about the idea of manifesting. And I want to mention a few other masters of manifesting. You can check out those other episodes on this podcast as well. But the whole aim, again, as always, is to help you and me really learn things that help us to feel better, to do better, because it's a lot easier to do better when we feel better, and to live better overall. That's really what it's all about. And I feel like people's inspiring stories sometimes are the motivation and inspiration that we need. Now, Lana will tell you more about her journey, and she'll tell you, much more eloquently than I can. But, she'll talk about being a little girl growing up in Bermuda, really wanting to be an actor at some point, but not seeing examples of people who looked like her or who shared a similar background, who had made it. Fast forward, when Lana was in her 30s, she went back to school. She moved internationally. She honed her craft. And most importantly, I think, or equally importantly, she got really clear on her dream, and she got going on what I refer to as the 3M theory or formula for manifesting. And that's manifesting. The 1M equals a combination of the mystical, right? Believing that you can create magic in your life, and the mundane, getting out there and doing the very earthly, mundane, practical stuff you need to do to make it happen. And Lana has done that and then some. So just a quick overview. Lana has appeared on TV, in film, on the stage. Here's just a small sampling of the places where you will have seen her. So on OWN, on CBS, NBC, the CW, Hulu, Marvel, Paramount Pictures, Netflix. Her diverse roles highlight her versatility. She's had notable appearances in shows like WandaVision, The Vampire Diaries, Dynasty, Law and Order, Tyler Perry's movie A Jazzman's Blues, just to name a few. What will stand out for you when you hear this interview with Lana is she has absolute faith in herself. And that's not because everybody she's encountered has been like, oh, you've got this. Far from it. But she has really such an optimism and an openness to abundance. And she really has harnessed the power of perseverance. And these are reasons, just some of the reasons why I refer to her as an expert manifester. Right? Lana has dreamed vividly and believed ahead of time that she can do the things she needs and wants to do. And she has brought those things and even better things into her life as a result. Now, I've had other people on the podcast too who have talked about manifesting, whether they've used that term or not. Two other expert manifestors that you can listen to my interviews with them are people like DJ Prince Hakeem and astrologer Leslie McGurk. Prince Hakeem, you can listen to episode 89. He's really just taken the musical world and DJing world by storm. He has DJ'd incredible events internationally. He's been at Carnegie Hall. He has for years and years opened for Kool and the Gang and other very well-known artists. He is a songwriter. He's done so many things that he's wanted to do. And again, he's somebody who just is so good at visualizing and deciding that these great things are happening in the now. He's stepped into the idea of abundance and embraced things with gratitude. right? He's a really spiritual person, and I know you'll enjoy listening to episode 89, where you can hear more about Hakeem's journey. Leslie McGuirk, she is a best-selling author. She's an astrologer. She is a commercially successful artist. She's been on a few podcast episodes, some talking about astrology and astrological forecasts, but also about her manifesting journey. Leslie is somebody who, I met now over 20 years ago, and the one workshop I took with her stayed in my mind so much that 18 years later, I reached out and asked her to speak to my class, and she did, right? Maybe I manifested that. But Leslie was told at an early age she would never be an artist because the way she drew wasn't what her art teacher thought was worthy. It's not what people had come to expect about, I guess, kids cartooning. Fast forward, Leslie's designs have been commercially successful internationally. She's illustrated a number of best-selling children's books, and she's someone who had to believe in herself even when other people were very overt about not believing in her. And I mention that because, so many of us, maybe you as well, have had plenty of people tell us we could not do something, or we shouldn't hope for something, or people like us don't get XYZ, and so forth, right? I remember applying to go back to school in my 30s, in my mid-30s, when the ideal candidate for these PhD programs was an early 20-something, person who had had a very specific trajectory, and it wasn't the one I had. I remember after I finished my PhD being told that I shouldn't open a private practice because I would need to work in a hospital or academic setting for years before I could go out on my own. And I remember how anxious and unworthy I wound up feeling. I still, though, wound up opening my private practice, and it was very successful pretty quickly. Something that helps us to manifest, I think, is to have at least one person who can give us realistic feedback, but also encourage us. For me, that was my husband and some of my professors. For you, find that person, find your tribe who's going to support you, give you, the feedback that you might need to fine tune your approach. That's always, I think we have to be open to feedback, but we also have to believe in our dream and be willing to take the steps to make it happen. As I've said before, I also think we have to be open to the dreams materializing in a way that might be different from how we've been thinking about it or imagining it. But don't give up. If I had to add another letter to my 3M formula of manifesting equals mystical plus mundane, I would add a G, and that's gratitude. You'll hear Lana talk about that. You'll hear Prince Hakeem talk about that. So many people do. And we need to feel grateful in the now rather than waiting for us to find something to be grateful for, when it happens or when it happens exactly as we think it should. Gratitude, we know from the psychology research, I've said it before, is such a positive force for feeling better and experiencing our world in a more positive way. It is a key ingredient in manifesting. I also want to acknowledge how hard it feels to be grateful before something happens, or especially if we're dealing with other more difficult emotions like fear, worry, anxiety, grief, self-doubt, all of these things. One thing I would advise all of us to do is just get practiced at the mental exercise of taking some of those emotions, even temporarily, and putting them in a box on a shelf in our minds, and then creating space every day to visualize and let your dreams become even more vivid, seeing them as happening right now, and feeling joyful at putting forth the energy and taking the steps we need to in a mundane way to make them happen. It's hardest in the beginning, but please know that our brains, our minds really do want to help us get where we want to be. I believe that. And the sheer exercise of mental rehearsal, whether that's through journaling or guided imagery or some other practice that helps you get in that space, it's worth doing. It gets easier over time, like building a muscle. The people that I have met who are masters of manifesting keep going. They're open to feedback. They're willing to shift their strategy when they need to, but they're grateful in the now and they expect to be successful. And don't get down on yourself if you have moments where you're like, I don't know if I can do it. It's completely normal. Just send yourself love at that time. Another thing I just wanted to quickly add is that there will always be people who are invested for whatever reason and telling you why you are not good enough or cannot do something or aren't the right flavor or whatever it is, right? Where the likelihood, the statistics are you're not going to be able to do this. What I want to tell you is if you're willing to do the work and if you are really able to vividly visualize these wonderful things happening, you can decide not to allow Nelly negative to take up space rent-free in your mind. It takes practice, right? You might just imagine Nelly negative moving into, another apartment. I don't know. You decide what works for you. But send those people love, right? And send yourself love when you feel down on yourself or discouraged and so forth. Most powerful force in the world, love, gratitude. It's an unlimited supply. Send it to the people who are so stuck that they want you to be stuck as well. Send it to yourself and your most pessimistic moments, and then get back on the road to realizing your dreams. So again, you get the point I'm trying to make before we go into the episode. And I want to just thank Lana because when I had the dream of doing this podcast, and honestly had no idea what I was doing, probably for quite a long time, Lana agreed to be my first ever guest. So this is an encore presentation of episode 1. So, Lana, I am so excited to have you here today on my first ever episode of my new podcast. You are truly the perfect person to be on this or any podcast. I'm going to introduce you with your formal and spectacular bio, but I want to say too that you are as every bit as engaging and lovely and nice in person as you are on screen, and probably even more so. And you are an expert manifester. And that's one of the reasons why I was really excited when you said yes to being my first guest, because you are so good at taking things from thought or inspiration and taking action and really making them a reality.
I actually manifested me coming on your show.
I did. So without further ado, I'm going to do the formal and very impressive bio. Here we go. So Lana Young started her acting career in her 30s after receiving her Master of Arts in Acting from the Arts Educational School in London. Her career work includes the recurring roles of Dr. Mary Osder in Fox's hospital drama The Resident, as Inez Trujillo in Ambitions on OWN, Dr. Lopez in Tell Me a Story on CBS All Access, Mrs. Douglas in The Vampire Diaries on CW, Dr. Jacinta Butler in Greenleaf on OWN, and Gloria Ruiz in The Inspectors on CBS. She's had guest starring roles, including as Detective Michelle Hodiak in Gone on NBC, Linda and Kevin Can Wait on CBS, Debbie in The Act on Hulu, opposite Patricia Arquette, and most recently, Dr. Hyland in WandaVision on Disney Plus, opposite Teyonah Parris, and Dr. Jansen in Lizzie's Story on Apple TV, opposite Julianne Moore and Clive Owen. She's had co-starring roles including Jessica Jones, Blind Spot, Satisfaction, Nashville, Law and Order, and Dynasty, to name a few. And in film, Lana has been honored to work with some of the greats, Christopher Plummer and Ewan McGregor in the Oscar-winning film Beginners, playing Gloria the Nanny opposite Jake Gyllenhaal and Rachel McAdams in the boxing drama Southpaw, and playing a fertility doctor opposite Emily Blunt and Justin Theroux in the feature film The Girl on the Train. She currently lives in New York City with her cats, Monkey and Lennon, who are totally adorable and do tricks. And I definitely want to mention that you are also somebody who is a writer, a producer, you're an acting coach, and again, you're an expert manifester. So welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. And I don't know if you saw a recurring theme there, but I play a lot of doctors. So if you need medical advice, do not come to me. I only play a doctor on TV.
The next step is to have all, ads where you're playing a doctor on TV and they have the little disclaimer.
It's uncanny. It's uncanny. I think I should be an honorary doctor by now, don't you think?
I think you should.
Yeah.
That's next. So, Lana, I'm so struck by your journey because, you wound up finding acting or pursuing acting later in life. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about when you knew that acting was a passion or a calling and how you knew, and when you decided or what helped you to decide to make the shift.
That's a great question. And I think my response always starts as sort of the cliche, always wanted to be an actor. I've dreamed of being an actor since I came out of the womb. And, that is true. And I used to stand in front of the mirror and practice my over the shoulder look on the red carpet a lot. That's not a lie. So, I guess I was sort of manifesting when I was a child without even really knowing it, realizing that that's what I was doing. But I'm from Bermuda, and it's a tiny island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and you can't make a living as an actor on an island. So I had to set about pursuing other things while continuing to dream about it. And when I turned 28, I'm very good at noticing universal breadcrumbs in my path. Every little breadcrumb has led me to the next step, to the next step, to the next step. And I feel like I'm very good at seeing those and then following them in faith. And I was briefly married when I was 28 to an American, which took me over to Boston. And I found myself in a place where I could start to dip my toes in, casting beyond the island. And I think at first I was nervous because I was sort of for all intents and purposes, a big fish in a little pond on the island doing local theater and so on and so forth, but, certainly not a star by any means. So being in the States all of a sudden made me feel like, can I do this? Am I a contender? And everything I auditioned for, I would book. And it wasn't paying stuff yet, but I would book it and I think, okay, another breadcrumb, another piece of validation, another breadcrumb, another piece of validation. And then in 2003, I auditioned for my first TV film. So it was my first on-camera job ever. And I booked it, and it was as hospital administrator Janine Mackey. So it started in the hospital. And it was the validation I needed to make the leap from the corporate world into pursuing acting as a career. And I think that that's where it sort of started as a reality for me. So following the breadcrumbs up until that point, and then I realized, well, I'm at a place in my life right now. I was 33. I'm in a place in my life right now where I could pursue this. I was now divorced, no children, no commitments, nothing tying me down. That's a terrible way to put it, but you know what I mean. I don't mean to insult parents or anybody.
But you only had your own schedule to plan, and that does give you more freedom. It does.
Yeah, exactly. So I figured if I was going to make this big leap of faith, that I would need training. Just like anything, I want to be at the top of my game if I pursue it. And I decided to look for training in London. I found the school that I wanted to go to. It had a master's program 1 year, all intensive, acting all day long. It was like a dream come true. And I got in. another validation, another breadcrumb. And I think once I got into that school is when I sort of really let my passion for it come out, because now I was truly on the path of my dream that had been thinking about since I was a little girl. I think I'm answering your question. Am I answering your question?
I think you're answering it beautifully. So, I mean, so even well before you actually took the plunge, you were in terms of moving and auditioning for roles elsewhere. Even at home, you were doing community theater. And I'm assuming, I'm imagining you as a little girl actually with your, your stage at home and imagining being a successful actor.
Well, I think it's really important to look at the time frame with all of that. Like, if that dream was happening until I was 28 when I moved to the States, and then didn't go to drama school until I was 33, I just want to point out that that is a long time for a dream to come true. So timing is everything. And I'm saying that to illustrate that if something doesn't happen right away, doesn't mean that it's not going to happen.
And I think that's a lot of your like the secret of your success, because I was thinking about this today before, I knew we were speaking today. And I'm thinking about how often we, read about or hear about people who are quote overnight successes. And, maybe once in a blue moon that's true, but often there are years and years of hard work and trying and not getting everything you want um, before you become an overnight success.
Absolutely. And I think not that I'm an overnight success, but, you know, fast forward to 2014, keep in mind that drama school was 2003, moved to Los Angeles in 2005, 4.5 years of trying to make it in Los Angeles at a time when I was in my mid 30s and a mixed race actress at a time when casting was very Caucasian and young. I literally showed up in Los Angeles, this Bermudian fulfilling her dreams, like, I'm here. And then it like, cricket, cricket. No one cared. No one cared that I was there. So,
Sure they
uh,
did.
and again, breadcrumbs, breadcrumbs, breadcrumbs. It wasn't my time. I took 5 years in Charlottesville, Virginia. I started an acting school. I kept my eye on the prize, though. I did local theater, and I did independent film. And then in 2014, it's like my time came. I hopped back on the saddle. I got an agent and immediately booked a recurring role on the Vampire Diaries, in the show Devious Maids, and then the film Southpaw, which then got me to New York. Um, so, if anyone was going to say overnight, I suppose that would be the moment. I consider 2014 really being the beginning of my career. And shortly after that, I started to make a living at it. But the journey before that was long and enjoyable. I learned a lot along the way, and it's all bankable experience, and it all helps with my acting toolbox, experiences from which to pull the ups and the downs. So, yeah.
So important that you are willing to share that, because again, I think most things that feel worth working for, take a lot more effort than people realize. But the other thing is, I think from the outside looking in, like now we see a lot more people. You refer to being mixed race and being, not, you know, fresh out of high school. And now we see much greater diversity in acting. It's not diverse enough, but you are not the only person that we see in important roles. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, like how you've seen things change, or who was supportive, even when it just seemed like it would have been harder to get going, or you could easily have been more discouraged. Who was supportive, and what were some of the things people said that were not helpful?
Well, I believe that we all have immense innate power. And I have to say that while was a lot of support along the way, with sort of cheering sections, friends saying, this is great, this is awesome, you can do it. And of course, my mom always saying, you can do whatever you put your mind to, and so on and so forth. A lot of my forward trajectory came from my own positive momentum, me continually telling myself or believing in myself that I could do this. Um, the business is very strange, and I find that not everybody is eager to step out and help you. because everyone's trying to help themselves move on in this business. Which is why I think that I love to help other people, because I kind of wish, and I'm afraid how this sounds, but it's the truth. I wish there had been someone there willing to guide me when I was first started. But I didn't actually have a lot of that within the industry. I had to figure out a lot of stuff on my own. So I think that there were a few times in my life that sort of lit a fire under my butt in terms of belief in myself. And that started when I was at school in Bermuda, in high school in Bermuda. My headmistress at the time told me that I would never amount to anything. And which is tragic, right? Because I could have been a child who believed that.
Yes.
But it lit a fire under me, and it made me move ahead. Not to say that little voice is still back there sometimes wanting to have a louder voice in my head, and I push it aside. I've been described sometimes as fearless, and I will be the first to admit I am not fearless. I have fear. I just use it as my fuel, and sometimes it's daily where I have to sort of think, just do it, or else you're not going to do it. So that was a fire lighter for me, the headmistress. And then in Los Angeles, a casting director told me once that I would never make it with my curly hair, that I would have to start straightening my hair. And, that's the industry. They have a standard of beauty or acceptance or what's considered professional. And I tend to get cast in a lot of, professional roles, doctor, lawyer, judge, etc. And I wanted to show that you can be all those things with curly hair.
And you have.
Like somehow my brains aren't affected by the curls coming out of my head, so I chose not to listen to that.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, me too. And we're slowly starting to see that. It's not easy.
It's not easy when you're trying to break into an industry and not everybody, but, even anyone telling you that, the way you want to do it or the way you are or the way you want to be in this field is not the way. And almost like we're not going to open our doors.
Yeah.
And I think so many people can resonate with that. I mean, I myself have had that experience. Most people I know have had someone say something that was just, if we took it in deeper or held on to it too long, it would completely derail us.
It would stop us in our tracks. Absolutely. And it always threatens to as well. That's why we have to really depend on our own inner power, right? That we're all born with, and that life muddles sometimes, right? Societal norms, what people think is successful, what people think is a failure, la 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 la. It can become overwhelming if we choose to listen to it and not ourselves and our own instinct, right? And so when you talk about people who have been inspirations to me, I love, the Brené Browns of the world, Eckhart Tolle, I'm now listening or re-listening to Conversations with God. It all talks about our innate power and how okay it is to be vulnerable. Oh my God, being vulnerable is so liberating. When we hang on to trying to be something that other people want us to be or that think we should be, it's exhausting, isn't it?
It is. And it's authentic.
Yes. Yes. Just knowing what that is for you. Sometimes we forget because we're so caught up in what other people want from us or what other people think we should be and so on and so forth that we're like, wait a minute, who am I? What do I want?
Yeah, I'm thinking back to, you mentioned a few minutes ago, your inner strength and your ability to hear what the headmistress said or other people have said. And even if it kind of was still back there on the shelf, not to drown in it. And that's so hard, especially when we're young and especially when we want something and we're still discovering who we actually are. And I'm wondering, how do you think it's just your natural temperament that you naturally have this confidence and determination? Do you think it's something that was instilled in you or that key people modeled for you?
That is a question that I continue to explore all the time, Tracy, because people ask me that a lot. I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I was born as just a really happy child. My mother said I would go up and talk to people the minute I could talk. I would talk to strangers. I would leave our table at the restaurant and go and talk to people. Um, so I've always had a big curiosity about other people and how they tick. Um, so that curiosity has never left me. Um, my mother, my both of my parents have had really wonderful um, events happen in their lives that sort of made them stand out. My dad was an exceptional soccer player in Bermuda, and he was pulled off the island when he was a teenager to play for Notts County in England.
Wow.
I think he was 17 or 18. And, due to different things like racism and the weather, and being so far away from home at a young age, being, the first time sort of really leaving home for a long period of time, played a big role in him coming back to the island probably before he would have if the circumstances had been better for him as a black soccer player in England at the time. And my mother, who is from Northern Ireland and left Northern Ireland on a ship to work her way around the world when she was, I think, 19 or 20.
Wow.
Already had a wanderlust about the world, ended up in Bermuda as her second stop and met my father. And I shouldn't say only, she had a secretarial certificate and she started at that place. And now she's, one of the most successful realtors in Bermuda. So she modeled that for me. I watched her uh, grow and evolve in such a beautiful way and without complaint. And I know a lot of it had to do with supporting me and making sure that I had the life that the education and the life that she wanted me to have. And I think that a combination of those things and then maybe my own innate excitement and enthusiasm and childlike curiosity of the world has helped me keep moving forward like that with the belief that I can do it, that it's possible.
So important. And what you're describing really, I mean, I asked you before if it was temperament or having support, and it really sounds like it's both. And
Yeah.
again, not that it means that you never have doubts, but that you really trust yourself. I've been struck by how much you trust yourself. When some people would call it intuition. Some people would call it like, God or their higher power. Or some people would just say, I'm just listening to myself. I'm paying attention to how I feel when I think about doing this versus doing that. But you really listen and you really trust yourself. I never thought about it this way before, but you treat yourself with respect. And I feel like I'm teary saying that because it's so important. Because so many of us are raised not to respect our own opinions or our own drive. And I think women even more so. But
Oh
you
my
really do.
gosh. We are bombarded we're bombarded with images of things that we don't have and that we need to be better. And I fight that all the time. So thank you. And I do respect myself and I appreciate you acknowledging that. And I also fight the same demons that everybody else does with being shown images of things that I should have that I don't have yet. And I just want to paraphrase something that I was reminded about recently from conversations with God. And that is, you will not have that for which you ask because your very request is a statement of lack. Just think about that for a second. If you're asking and asking and asking, it's basically saying you do not have this in your life rather than being grateful and coming from a place of gratitude and thanking the higher power, God, the universe, yourself, for already having all of that abundance inside you as though it's already there. That's something that I've practiced for that's something that I think came naturally to me, but then as life got harder and harder and challenges came, I think that stuff has been chipped away a little bit. So I'm fighting harder to have that in my life, but it's something that I'm always conscious of. And I try to always think that way. Shouldn't say try to always think that way. I am always thinking that way.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? Phrasing and words matter.
Yeah, they really do. And as a psychologist, I think about how often, even if we took the more kind of metaphysical piece out of it, which we don't have to, but not everybody, is coming from that place or is open to that interpretation. But even if we just looked at it from a purely psychological point of view, it's that, the messages we tell ourselves kind of create this script, right? That's always running in the back of our minds. And or these kind of, subconscious billboards that say, I can only have this if I am, or I'm only deserving of this, but not that. And these unconscious or kind of subconscious messages wind up steering the ship for better or worse. If we say, you know what, things can be difficult and I am succeeding or I am able to find, joy and gratitude in every moment, or our affirmations that we wind up telling ourselves, both the ones we're aware of and the ones we're less aware of are so important. And when you think about what you were talking about, again, it's manifesting, right? And it's kind of it's a hot topic lately, and the law of attraction and things like that, but it's also something that I think people might misunderstand or pigeonhole into this thing. It's kind of like, well, if I think it, then it happens and I don't have to do anything, or then it's easy. And that's not what you're saying. And I think that's why you're such a successful manifester, in the sense that you are thoughtful about how you think about your life and who you are and what you want. You're constantly educating yourself about other ways to grow. So important. And you're putting out there what you want and visualizing it as if it is so in this moment, but you are also every day taking the steps. And you're taking the steps even when it's really hard and really discouraging. And that's when it's the hardest to keep on.
Boy, is it ever. Yes. And I really love that. I just want to touch on that because I get great joy in coaching. I call myself the actor who coaches because I love paying forward all of the experiences that I have to people who may not have as much experience or may just be starting out. And I really get great, immense joy from doing that. What I have noticed is a lot of people have been taught to expect the worst. And I think that is an issue. When we expect the worst, then we are drawing the worst to us. How about just acknowledging that something may not happen and choosing to expect it to happen and be okay if it doesn't? That's how I realize I make difference from some people, is that I expect that things will work out. And when they don't, I already know that that's a possibility. Right. And so when I coach, I try to help people shift that perspective. There's no reason why this won't happen for you, right? Like, talk in terms of what you want to have happen and be prepared for every eventuality instead of expecting the worst. And then if it works out, yay.
It's such a realistic but self-protective kind of stance to take, right? Because you're not being, you're not trying to Pollyanna it and say, oh, everything's going to be great. I'm not allowed to have a negative thought about it, or, which I think is a complete misunderstanding of manifestation, right?
Right.
But you're also saying it can be that this thing, even if it doesn't work out the way I am hoping it will, I always say that, when I'm in session, I'll say to patients, it's a point on your timeline. And, maybe we can learn something from it, but it isn't the whole timeline. The cloud in the sky isn't the sky.
Oh,
it's not going to be statically in that position forever.
And I have to tell myself that all the time. And I'm going to use that. The cloud in the sky is not the sky. Sometimes I will, especially during COVID, it was so difficult, right? When it first hit, no one knew what was happening. We were scared. We were in the dark. Um, and, we were adapting sometimes almost moment by moment with our new circumstances. And I had to constantly remind myself, okay, it's not going to be always like this in this moment. It's, tomorrow, the next hour is a new hour. The next day is a new day. And next year is a new year. I don't sit here all day thinking life is peaches and roses. No, I'm very aware of all of the challenges in life with social justice, racial justice, just how people are treating each other, love versus hate and all of those things. And I'm constantly trying to figure out how to manage my feelings about all of those things without letting it break me, because it does affect me deeply. And I realize that my energy is something I can use to serve the collective energy, right? The collective consciousness.
Right.
So if I can keep mine going in a positive direction while also coming up with positive solutions, then I am doing my little bit just by sharing good energy instead of bad, negative, horrible energy.
Absolutely.
But it's work, and it's a conscious decision all the time. I'm a manifester. I do Vedic meditation. Sorry, I'm a meditator. Did I say manifester?
You are a manifester, but
Yes.
and not everybody might know what Vedic meditation is. So can you talk about that?
Yes, they might know it better as transcendental meditation.
Okay.
But your teacher will give you a mantra based on sort of where you are in your life, the feeling that they get from you when they're training you, and then that is yours alone. You don't share that with anybody else. And a beginner would meditate twice a day for 20 minutes using this mantra to gently bring them to a deeper state of bliss. And it's a lovely way to cycle out your stress thoughts. You're not meant to have no thoughts. It's welcoming in the thoughts and then gently focusing on your mantra and then allowing the thoughts to cycle through and go away. And it's a great stress reliever. It helps with aging. It helps with our body health. And also to interact with life instead of react to life. And my meditation teacher, Tom Knowles, once said, there are no problems. It's just information and how we deal with the information. And I really try to practice that as much as possible, because God knows it's easy to feel bogged down by the problems, right? By the obstacles.
Sure. Especially now.
So I really, whenever I have a complaint or a thought like that, I really make a great effort to pull back and think, okay, what is this information I'm dealing with now? And how can I handle this information? How can I solve it? How can I use this information? And move on from there. So yes, it's work. It's constant work. It's self-awareness, and it's worth every effort though, because the alternative is crawling into a corner and sucking life out and finding a happy place. And that's no way to live life. I want to live life as big as I can. So
I love that. Everything you said really resonates, and you're absolutely right now, especially, and I think, just given everything that's been going on in our country and in the world, and not being able to get out of our homes as much and do things that would normally just take up a lot of our physical time and our emotional energy. I'm wondering, is meditation the primary thing? Are there other things that you found that have been helpful? I know you have been working on other projects. I know you have been coaching and mentoring, and that goes back to you being the person that you really wanted when you started out, which is incredible.
Yeah, thank you.
Talk about some of the projects and things that you've been able to be working on, or that you've been able to see come to fruition during this time.
Yes. It is harder to step outside. Nature is a big one. I've become an orchid mother. Since I can't get out as much, I've got these beautiful orchids I never thought I'd be able to keep orchids alive. And I feel like I feel like it's a symbol of like how well I'm taking care of myself. If my organs start to droop, it's time to, do a little work on myself. Um, Getting outside and exercising as much as possible without, you know, getting sick or getting the virus or whatever has been very helpful to me. Meditation has been good, but also again, it's a conscious decision because the last thing you feel like doing, right, is sitting down and being still and feeling all the stress.
Yes.
But in fact, if you can do that at the end of the meditation, it feels so much better. So I'm constantly fighting my desire to not sit down and be still. But then when I do, I feel better about it. Yes, my students have been, oh my God, they have been a lifesaver to me. They're all such hard workers and really dedicated to the craft and to bettering themselves and to making something happen for themselves that they inspire me, every day. And they give me purpose every day. So I'm very grateful for them. Friends like you and other strong women uh, and men in my life who are out there making stuff happen, innovate, finding the answer to this new circumstance, inspire me every day and keep me going. They keep me rising, rising, rising. That has been such a great help, right? My friends have been so helpful and supportive during this time. And there was something else, and I've just totally lost my thought now, and I can't find it again. But I'm sure it'll come back.
It will come back. and I mean, you wrote a pilot.
Oh yes,
Thinking you have a lot of exciting projects that you might want to talk about.
Yes, right. Thank you. Okay, so I was speaking to a new dear friend, Miss Phyllis Dowling, who is Bermudian but has been living in the States for many, many years and is quite a groundbreaker herself. And she sent me a passage recently that talked about looking back on this time as the Great Awakening rather than the Great Pandemic. And I am adopting that. That is fine. And anybody else, feel free to use that. This 2020 was the year. It was the Great Awakening, and it was the year of innovation. And so along with a co-writer, decided to write a show.
That's just amazing.
So we wrote an original comedy series pilot called Between Us, which my manager is pitching right now as we speak. And it taught, so it's a matter of hey, listen, if I can't get a role for myself at the age that I am and the mixed racedness that I am, then I will create it myself. And if someone else is not interested in picking it up, which is a possibility, right? Then I will figure out how to make it myself. And I'm also looking at creating some online classes inspired by you. Trying to make use of knowledge I have to share and making it available for people online to just
I love it.
Rent or buy whenever they need it. So I'm currently working on that. And the auditions have started to trickle back in again. And I actually have one that I just received last night, which is a role I'm really excited about. I can't talk about it, but it's like, all I can say is it's not a doctor. And
unbelievable.
It's a not so nice person.
Okay.
I hate to sound excited about that, but all my roles are like kind and compassionate and all that stuff. And I'm an actor. I want to like dig in. Yes. So I'm excited about this particular audition. So I think in my mind, there's no reason why I won't get this role, right?
I love it.
So
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, I know you have lots on your plate, so I won't keep you all day, even though I would very much enjoy picking your brain. You're very inspirational and motivating because you are somebody who kind of grabs life by the horns, as they say. I think I might have mixed my metaphor, the bull by the horns.
Right. It works.
And, I think so many of us have felt so sluggy during a lot of this last year or immobilized. And so it's so good and so refreshing to hear that it's okay to have the feelings we're having, but we can also start to channel some of those energies into things that are meaningful.
Yes.
It's important that, sometimes we need to just go within, and other times we can just channel that and, get that energy to, become something that's really important to us. So I'm wondering, I guess, do you have any thoughts, advice for anybody who's thinking, I'm really passionate about this, but it's really daunting, or I'm too old, or to this, or to that, or to the other thing, or, how am I going to do this? Um, you know,
Hmm.
what do you have first of all, how do you think people will know that their authentic voice, their authentic wisdom or intuition is communicating with them? That's kind of like a big question. So you don't have to take that on,
No, it's
but, and what's your advice to people who are like, I really want you, but I'm scared?
hmm hmm Um, well, if I can come back to that in a minute, I just want
Yeah,
to
of
go to
course.
something I said earlier
Sure.
when you asked me about, people who had been supportive. I realized that it may have come across as like, I did it all by myself. I want to make it very clear that there were people along the way who I would look to for inspiration, like people who were doing things beyond, beyond fear and etc. So I was inspired by other people. I was just saying people within the industry weren't necessarily that helpful on the way through. Just wanted to make that clear.
Totally, totally understand.
I would, I would, I would challenge people to really take a step back and have a nice little audit of themselves inside. And it's important not to get stuck in a cycle of suffering. I think it's very important to feel a feeling when it's happening.
Yeah.
If I feel like crying, I cry. If I feel like laying on the floor and beating my fists on the ground, I do it. Don't ignore that. Let that come out. Just let it out, because if you hold it in, it'll manifest in other ways and in not so positive ways, maybe to a
Absolutely.
partner or to a child or to whoever. Honor your feelings and then make a decision to use those feelings to fuel you forward, to change something, right? If something's not working in your life, you have the power to change it.
And only
And
you can.
and only you can. And I would really, really advise, like, I think it's great that people talk to friends and family all the time to get advice. But honestly, everybody is different and everybody has different reasons for advising you in certain ways. Okay. Some people might be fearful themselves and then be projecting their fear onto you. Or some people may be envious of you even wanting to step outside of your comfort zone and may, advise you not to do it because then you would be doing something that they were incapable of doing or not willing to try. So, as much as you want to get advice from other people, I think it's time to really start trusting yourself. You wake up in your body, you have to live your day. So I say to live it the way you want to live it, as long as it's not illegal and you're not hurting anybody.
There's a
um,
lot in that category. It's a very broad category,
very
be not
broad.
illegal and not hurtful.
Right, right. There's all that stuff. Let's just say that it's all positive things that make us feel good and that also add to the collective consciousness of the people and world around you, right? Your words, your behavior, your deeds matter to everyone around you. And so I would say if you're fearful of anything, maybe take stock about what it is you're exactly fearful of. Are you fearful of success? Then maybe break that down and find out why success makes you afraid. And then figure out how to move beyond that obstacle. Is it money? Look at your relationship with money. Do you think money is bad? Do you think that money is not the answer to everything? Look at your relationship with money, because that also might be a block to you moving forward, right? Money is
Right.
great. Do not be afraid of money. Money is great. It allows us to do wonderful things in the world, right?
Including help other people,
Ex-
including
That's
employ people,
that's
including purchase people's goods that help keep them, keep their feet
exactly.
afloat.
Exactly. So take a look at your relationship with money. It's not the devil, only if it's being used for purposes that aren't noble or helpful in any way. And then, but yeah, I think that if we take an inner audit of ourselves and really find out what is blocking us, and then set about breaking it down to understanding why we have those blocks, and then figuring out how to move beyond them. And sometimes it's just good old fashioned kick that fear in the butt and just do it anyway. Because what's the worst thing that can happen? What is the worst thing that can happen? I try to get my students to get rid of the words failure, competition, and rejection, because there is no competition. You are a unique being, and you are you. No one else is you.
Absolutely.
So don't be your own competition.
I love that.
Rejection, whatever. Get rid of it. Gone. Just keep moving until you get to the place you want to be, no matter what. Okay? No matter what is in your way. Rejection only has power if you give it power. And failure, the only failure is not trying. So
I love it.
Just try it. Keep trying it until you get where you want to be.
I love it. Lana Young, ironically, successful actor, and yet one of the most authentic people I know, hands down, not kidding. I am so glad that you were able to make time for me today. I am so grateful. Tell people where they can find out about you, your acting, your coaching, anything else you want to share. What are the best ways for people to connect with you?
Great. Yes. So I'm a recent addition to TikTok, surprisingly.
Not old if you're on TikTok.
Right? That's what they say. So on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, I am actor Lana Young, at actor Lana Young. My website is also actorlanayoung.com. And there you can see stuff about my career. And then there's also a tab for my coaching and self-taping services. And you can go in there and see all the classes all the private coaching that I offer. And I've recently embarked on doing very short inspirational interviews on social media as well. So I'm not only going to focus on actors of note and casting directors and agents, but I also want to interview people who are just inspiring to me. So Tracy, I'd be looking out for that sometime soon, because you are such an inspiration to me. You are constantly figuring out how to share your gifts with people. Your desire to help people live with ease and confidence, and to learn how to manifest beautiful things in their life is just remarkable. And I salute you, and I'm inspired by you daily.
Oh, wow, I'm going to cry.
So much. Well, look at you. I mean, you just keep going. You just keep going and keep creating, and I love it. So thank you.
Thank you. Right back at you, Lana. Thank you so much for being here today. And I can't wait till we speak again.
Me neither. Go out and be great, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Here's a quote from Lana that I find inspiring. I think you will too. And I want to leave you with this. She said, "I reflect on my life in Bermuda, that little island girl watching the ocean flow persistently against the island, never giving up, never stopping until it found its way to the other side. I believe the ocean was my teacher, to never give up, to believe there is always a way. It taught me to go with the flow of life and to conquer my obstacles. I have no idea what each day will bring, but I remain eager to watch it unfold. I do my work, I show up, and I believe that anything is possible. The rest is up to the universe and the producers." And of course, if you get a chance, let me know what you think. Leave me a comment. Please remember to like, share, and give it a follow. It really helps me continue bringing more great and inspiring content to you. And of course, as always, be well.